Sup dudes, it's Snail. So I love a good quest mod. It's no secret that many find Fallout 4's questing just a little lacking. Often, it can feel less like a role-playing game and more like you're playing a looter shooter with extra steps. So it should go without saying that quest mods are often one of the most popular and impressive categories of mods for the game. In fact, on my personal playthrough, I probably have about 150 hours of content that was added strictly from these quest mods. And no, I haven't finished any of them yet. Yeah, you got me. But there's one mod out of all of these that I haven't stopped thinking about since I finished it. It only adds about 45 minutes to 2 hours of fresh content if you're really trying to squeeze it, and the play area is roughly the size of Sanctuary, if not smaller. But it manages to grab you from the moment you begin the quest. From start to finish, you become engrossed in this location that you've never seen before. It fits so seamlessly in the game, and it stays with you for a long time after you finish it. And today, that's where I'm going to be taking you. Come with me as we visit Boon Island. But first, if you really like this video, make sure you comment down below, like, and subscribe. It'll tell me to make another one just like this for a different mod in the future. And believe me, I have a lot of different options for a video like this. That being said, without further ado, let's jump right into it. Boon Island is one of the newest quest mods on Nexus, and it's actually the first in a series of mods named the Isles of New England. I actually reached out to the creators Ten Hats and Shredda4, and they're actually really cool people by the way, and got to ask them some questions about their creation. The pair previously worked together on Ashland Station, a similar mod that is highly regarded for its quality. I haven't played it yet, but Future Snail has, so I'll let him weigh in right now.
Someone help, it's like I died and went to radioactive hell!
Thank you, Future Snail. Very cool. Anyway, the Isles of New England series is meant to be a series of new world spaces with a mix of quests, settlements, and dungeons when the location calls for it. Although it's a series, they haven't yet decided if they want to make it a series of standalone stories or if they want to give it an overarching plot. Now, all the locations for the Isles of New England are going to be pulled from real-life places, and Boon Island is no different. It was their first choice for two reasons. For reason number one, they wanted to keep the scope of the mod fairly small, so Boon Island was a great choice, since in real life, Boon Island is quite small. It's only about 300 feet by 700 feet, and only 14 feet above sea level at low tide. This is actually so close to sea level that it's said that storm winds are able to heave boulders straight across the surface of the island, destroying whatever structures are in their way. And the second reason for the pair was that the island has a tragic history behind it. We're going to explore the history further later in the video, but while there's still daylight on the island, let's explore the story for this mod.
Mayday! Mayday! This is Liam Bright, returning from the mainland aboard a red trawling vessel, caught in a severe storm. We're taking on water and need immediate assistance.
To get to Boon Island, you first have to make your way to Croup Manor, which if you didn't know is on the eastern shores of Boston. Once you get there, to the east of Croup Manor is a docked boat. When you board the boat and activate its controls, it will take you to the island, and as the boat eases into the dock, you'll get the quest A Beacon of Old, with the objective being to investigate Boon Island. Naturally, I began by walking around the empty island, checking the ruined structures for anything interesting. And while I didn't find anything of interest, what I did find was that the island itself was a really desolate place. You get the real feeling that no one and nothing has been there for a very long time. And in a way, it does kind of feel like a time capsule back to the moment just before the bombs fell. So given this feeling of isolation that I was getting just walking around the island, imagine my surprise when I walked into a nearly perfectly preserved pre-war house and saw a distressed woman sitting in an armchair, seemingly waiting for someone to show up. It turns out this is exactly what the quest wanted me to do, so I spoke to her. This is Catherine. She's the wife of the lighthouse keeper on Boon Island. Now, it's at this point I have to ask you whether you want the rest of the story spoiled. If you don't, skip ahead to the time code on screen, or to the chapter right after the story recap. Even if you think you know where this is going, your choices may produce a different outcome. It's quite obvious she needs some help, and she wastes no time in telling us the situation. She reveals her husband is sick, or in her words, not well. Their son had left earlier to get some medicine from the mainland, but he hasn't made it back yet. And to make matters worse, a storm is beginning to roll in on the island. Catherine asks us to get in contact with her son while she looks after her sick husband in the lighthouse. But she's interrupted by a mayday call from her son, whose vessel is caught in the storm. Something peculiar I should point out, you have the option to ask her for payment, and if you're successful, she ends up paying you in 10 pre-war money. Do with that information what you will, as now it's time to save her son. As you swim out, the vessel is already at the bottom of the sea. And when you dive down to check the vessel out, it becomes very apparent that both the vessel and the son have been there for quite a while. When you interact with the son's bones, an info card reads, "The bones are picked clean, stripped of any flesh, and covered in a thick layer of moss." From there, the game gives you a choice. You can either collect his bones or do nothing. I chose to collect his bones, and upon collecting them, you find the key for the Boon Island lighthouse. Returning to the island, the storm has begun to move in on the barren rock. First, I decided to check in on Catherine, who I thought would still be in the house. But entering the house now reveals a shocking transformation. Now the effects of 200 years of abandonment drape themselves over the empty structure. Actually, this moment was so well done that this was my reaction to it on livestream when I played it for the first time. What the fuck? Dude, this was I was not expecting this. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, clearly, she wasn't coming back here. I figured I might as well open the lighthouse and keep exploring. That's when I found her and her husband at the bottom of the lighthouse stairs. When you interact with them, you're given another choice. You can collect their remains or do nothing. Once again, I chose to collect them, and once you have the remains of all 3 family members, the final choice you were given is to either put them to rest with a proper burial or simply discard the remains. Now, you can choose what you'd like. I chose to give them a proper burial. As a bonus for giving them the burial, the storm clears, the atmosphere on the island grows light, and a sense of calm is brought to the island. Discarding the remains, however, also lets you access the workbench as a settlement, but it has the opposite effect on the island's atmosphere. An ominous anger fills the island, the storm worsens, the fog thickens, and you don't exactly know what it might be, but you do know that something is very angry with the choice that you just made. No matter which choice you make, though, the main quest is over.
Please, can you help me? We're in bad shape, and I can't handle this alone.
The main quest is inspired by a ghost story long told about Boon Island. Boon Island has seen its fair share of darkness and tragedy, and while the records to verify the story have never been found, many locals and former lighthouse attendants swear by its veracity. It's probably also worth mentioning that over time, Boon Lighthouse has seen many different attendants. In fact, it wouldn't be inaccurate to call it a revolving door. So is the following story really true? Honestly, who's to say? But the story has multiple interpretations. This is the one that I've found the most common. In the mid-1800s, a man named Lucas Bright and his new bride, Catherine, relocated to Boon Island to tend the lighthouse. Following this, some versions of the story say Lucas either became gravely ill mere months into the marriage, or that Lucas was drowned during a violent storm and then recovered by Catherine. However, every version agrees on what happens after his death. Overcome with shock and grief, Catherine Bright would leave her husband's lifeless body at the bottom of the lighthouse stairs, and for 5 days, she would not eat and she would not sleep. Instead, she would tirelessly tend to the lighthouse in her husband's stead. After maintaining the light, she would sit cradling the corpse of her husband until it was once again time to light the beacon. However, on the 6th day, she would either run out of fuel or simply stopped lighting it. When the locals noticed that the light had gone out, they sent a party to investigate, finding Catherine exhausted and disturbed from her grief, holding the lifeless body of her husband Lucas. Lucas's body was taken for a burial. Meanwhile, Catherine was taken to be cared for, but unfortunately, she would pass away only a short time later. Since then, many visitors, keepers, and locals report phenomenon like seeing a sad-faced woman in a white dress wandering the island, or hearing shrieking and wailing coming from the shores. Although Catherine and Lucas Bright's story could very well be fiction, these next 2 stories are real and documented. Not only did they happen, but Ten Hats and Shredda have included nods to at least one of them. The first story isn't explicitly referenced in any way by the mod, but would set the tone for the island moving forward. In 1682, a trading vessel named Increase would wreck on the island. 4 survivors of the wreck would be stranded on the island for a month, subsisting only on fish and gulls' eggs, until they finally built a fire to attract the attention of people from a nearby place called Mount Agamenticus. Their fire was seen by the people there, and they were soon rescued. It was this rescue that led the men to dub the island Boon Island. And while that story didn't end in complete tragedy, only 30 years later, another more famous shipwreck would occur. To make a long story short, the Nottingham Galley was a British merchant ship that wrecked on December 11th, 1710. All 14 crewmen survived the initial wreck, although 2 would later die of their injuries. The cook, who only died days later, and the carpenter, who died 2 weeks after the crash. Another 2 would attempt to sail for the mainland on a makeshift raft, but ultimately they would end up drowning during their journey. The remaining 10 members would survive for 24 days before rescue would come to save them. In contrast to the wreck of the Increase in 1682, the Nottingham Galley wrecked in the dead of winter, when storms blowing in off the Atlantic would batter the island, making life much harsher for the castaways. So needless to say, there were no gulls' eggs or fish to live off of. However, there were 2 dead bodies, so, unfortunately, the crew would resort to cannibalism in order to survive. This incident would become so well known that it would inspire a novel, and in fact the fallout from this event would be so massive that it would result in legal battles back in England when the crew was rescued. It's said that after this incident, fishermen would begin leaving provisions on the island, just in case of future wrecks. That wouldn't be the last time a major shipwreck would occur on the island, but you get the idea. Boon Island is a harsh, barren, rocky outcropping of land that stands only 14 feet above sea level. And with this mod, its story, legends, and legacy have been forever immortalized. Once you finish the main quest, you get free reign to explore as much of the island and its surrounding waters as much as you like. And I really do recommend exploring the water, as there is a lot to see. Massive skeletons of aquatic megafauna, downed and forgotten vertebrates, are just a few of the sights to see while you're down there. On land, you can appreciate the beauty that only a desolate piece of rock on the Atlantic could afford. One thing I enjoyed doing was going to the top of the lighthouse, having a 4K Milky Way skybox mod installed, and taking in the full scope of the night sky in a way that is hard to replicate in the Commonwealth. Although if nature and stargazing isn't really your thing, there are ruined buildings all over the island you can look after. A really cool feature that Ten Hats and Shredda used in this mod is the ability to actually repair these structures. You can fully repair them to make your new island home feel brand new again. This detail goes a long way because instead of just building a junk shack, you can help preserve the island's character while rejuvenating it for use. Unlike many other quest mods whose scope aims for bigger and grander additions to the base game, Boon Island seeks to do the opposite, and it keeps a focused, consistent vision from start to finish. It honors the history of its real-world counterpart while also feeling organic to the Fallout universe. Its effective, if brief, story utilizes your player agency to the fullest extent, and the outcomes of your decisions will stay with you for some time afterwards. Something I didn't notice when I played this for the first time is probably my favorite detail. As I approached the lighthouse, I was talking to my chat and looking around. However, in the second story window of the tower is Catherine, watching me as I walk around the island. It's hard to notice in the midst of the encroaching storm, but unmistakably, she is waiting, hoping I put her and her family to rest. Anyways, I'm Snail, thank you for watching, and if you like this mod, make sure you check the link down in the description below. I highly recommend you play it because I had a blast playing it, and it was a really good time, even if it was short. If you want me to do more videos about quest mods in the future, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe down below, and give me a suggestion. Is there a quest mod you think I should pick up? If so, let me know down in the comments. Until next time, I'm Snail, take care, brush your hair, and peace, dudes.